You were simply following orders. I get that, completely. And I harbor no ill will.
There's a load off my mind.
Mike Ehrmantraut isn't a tragic anti-hero. He's the most dangerous kind of villain, the one who thinks he's right. Few television characters have been so persistently misdiagnosed by their audiences as Mike Ehrmantraut. To some, he's a stoic anti-hero, a weary man haunted by his past, clinging to a personal code of conduct as the moral compass of an immoral world. To others, he's a hard-nosed pragmatist, a necessary evil in a system built on rot. But strip away the gravelly voice, the grandfatherly affection, and the ritualistic sandwich making, and the truth becomes difficult to romanticize. Mike Ehrmantraut is a villain, a polished, disciplined, self-justifying villain, but a villain nonetheless. The tragedy of Mike is not that he was ever good and fell from grace. It's that he was bad from the beginning and convinced himself he was the least bad option. He wasn't dragged unwillingly into corruption. He chose it, repeatedly, even when life handed him opportunities to stop. A drunk and a dirty cop long before Gus Fring's shadow crossed his path, Mike spent years extorting criminals under the banner of law enforcement. The revelation that his son followed in his footsteps, only to be executed by the same system of rot Mike helped perpetuate, should have been his moral reckoning. Instead, he made it his justification. Once his son was dead, Mike's guilt became his armor. He avenged the killing not by exposing the corruption that devoured his family, but by murdering the perpetrators and fleeing to New Mexico. From that moment forward, every violent act he committed was filtered through a delusion of redemption. Every execution, every cleanup job, every body dissolved in acid was rebranded as providing for Kaylee. The man who could have been a whistleblower became a hitman, a protector, whose idea of protection was murder in the name of stability. Yes, Mike follows a code, but so did every tyrant who ever wanted to sleep soundly. His code forbids hurting innocents. How noble. Yet he spends his career enabling drug traffickers, assassinating rivals, and laundering the proceeds of human misery. He likes to say he doesn't kill civilians, as though civilian were a term that conveniently excludes anyone who stands between him and the paycheck. When Lydia Rodarte Quayle panicked, he didn't calm her down. He threatened to kill her in front of her daughter. Whether or not he would have followed through is irrelevant. Heroes don't threaten children. Even Mike's supposed moments of restraint are just controlled acts of violence masquerading as virtue. He is not impulsive like Tuco Salamanca, nor flamboyantly sadistic like the cousins. His violence is professional, measured, and antiseptic, the corporate version of murder. That's precisely what makes him so chilling. When he strangles a man or shoots an unarmed engineer, it isn't rage. It's logistics. It's the efficiency of evil. There's a peculiar cultural desire to recast such men as tragic heroes. Perhaps it's the gravelly monotone, the deadpan humor, or the faint glimmer of regret behind those eyes that convinces viewers that Mike must be one of the good ones. But that's the illusion Vince Gilligan built his empire on, humanizing monsters without absolving them. Just because the camera follows a character closely doesn't make him a hero. It only makes him legible. Mike's defenders point to his paternal tenderness toward his granddaughter, as though affection toward family were an exemption from moral judgment. But history is littered with affectionate villains. Tuco Salamanca doted on his uncle. Walter White cried for his children. The ability to love does not absolve one of the things done in love's name. Mike's brand of morality is pure self-deception, a man convinced that his measured cruelty is justified because it comes wrapped in discipline and silence. The anti-hero label that fans cling to is equally misplaced. An anti-hero, by any coherent definition, commits morally dubious acts in pursuit of something recognizably good. The key distinction is that the anti-hero's transgressions serve an ideal or moral end. Mike's don't. He doesn't kill to save lives or steal to expose corruption. He kills and steals to ensure his granddaughter's trust fund is padded by the profits of methamphetamine. He isn't rebelling against evil. He's perfecting it. If anything, Mike is a textbook example of the anti-villain, a character whose self-control, competence, and quiet dignity obscure the cruelty beneath. He isn't flamboyantly evil. He's evil done efficiently, with clean hands and no fuss. He kills with the precision of a bureaucrat filling out forms. He's polite while doing it, which makes audiences comfortable. He's the corporate assassin, the calm before the cartel storm, the man who makes violence seem respectable. The lawful evil archetype fits him best, a man who operates with rules, structure, and a perverse sense of professionalism. Mike's moral compass points due south, but it always points somewhere. He's not chaotic, he's methodical. He doesn't revel in chaos. He maintains order within evil's hierarchy. He is the calm that allows greater monsters like Gus Fring to flourish. In Breaking Bad, Mike functions narratively as both antagonist and mirror. To Walter White, he is a chilling projection of what professionalism in crime looks like. Competence without conscience. Walt is reckless. Mike is restrained. Walt lies to himself about his motives. Mike simply refuses to ask. But both serve the same master, ego disguised as purpose. When Mike berates Walt for dismantling Gus's empire, it's not because he mourns the victims. It's because Walt disrupted the comfortable system that allowed him to pretend his violence was civilized. By the time he dies by the river, Mike's tragedy is not his death, but his peace. He dies quietly, staring at the water, muttering that Walt should have just let him die in silence. There is no epiphany, no confession, no acknowledgement of guilt. Just the serenity of a man too accustomed to blood to notice it on his hands anymore. He dies believing he was the adult in the room, the one who kept things running smoothly. In truth, he was the grease on the machine that crushed everyone else. Some argue that Better Call Saul redeemed Mike by showing his backstory, his grief, his loyalty, his reluctant descent into the underworld. But prequels often confuse context for justification. The audience learns why he became a monster, not that he wasn't one. His early acts in Saul, the execution of corrupt cops, the cover-ups, the body disposals, only deepen the irony. His revenge for his son's death was not justice. It was the same corruption, wearing a more personal mask. Mike's version of morality is a circle. He punishes evil by becoming it. And then there's the perennial argument that everyone in Breaking Bad is a villain. That's a lazy moral equalizer. Yes, the show is populated by criminals, but not all criminals are the same. Saul Goodman lies and schemes, but avoids murder. Jesse Pinkman kills reluctantly and breaks down afterward. Mike kills professionally and sleeps soundly. His evil is not reactive. It's institutionalized. He isn't swept along by circumstance. He is the circumstance. The idea that Mike is somehow better than Gus or Walt because he's not driven by pride is equally hollow. Pride and guilt are twin vices. Gus's empire feeds on vanity. Mike's feeds on penance. Both destroy everything they touch. Mike's insistence that he's doing it for Kaylee is as transparent a rationalization as Walt's for my family. Each man sacrifices the very people he claims to protect on the altar of his own self-image. Kaylee grows up without a father or grandfather, both swallowed by the same cycle of criminality. And for what? A savings account that never materializes. What's most insidious about Mike is how easy it is to root for him. He's efficient, laconic, competent, everything television loves in a man who kills people for a living. He isn't messy like Walt, or flamboyant like Tuco. He's the professional face of evil. And in an age obsessed with morally gray characters, competence often masquerades as morality. But as Manuel Varga pointedly tells him in Better Call Saul, you're still a gangster. No matter how much he hides behind civility, that's the truth that sticks. It's tempting to soften the label, call him a criminal, a bad man with a code, or a tragic relic of a dirtier time. But euphemisms don't change reality. Mike was a corrupt cop who became a cartel enforcer, who became a hitman for hire. His moral code is a brand strategy, not a conscience. His moments of kindness are not acts of heroism. They are indulgences of a man who needs to believe he's something more than a killer. If morality is defined by the harm one chooses to inflict or enable, then Mike's record speaks for itself. Decades of violence, intimidation, and murder, all justified by the fiction of necessity. He is the man who looks evil in the eye and says, as long as it's done properly. And yet, his complexity endures. Mike Ehrmantraut is fascinating, precisely because he embodies the banality of evil. The version that shows up on time, follows orders, and files the paperwork afterward. He is what happens when integrity survives, but morality dies. A man who mistakes order for virtue and professionalism for decency. In the pantheon of Breaking Bad's moral catastrophes, Mike is not the worst, but he's the most honest reflection of how evil sustains itself. Not through madness or malice, but through the quiet competence of men who think they're simply doing their job. Conclusion. Mike Ehrmantraut is not a hero, not an anti-hero, not even a tragic man undone by circumstance. He is the quiet engine of villainy, the man who enforces rules in hell and calls it honor. A villain, yes, but one wrapped so tightly in calm efficiency that viewers forget what he truly is, the steady hand that makes evil look civilized.